To continue this conversation with our panelists.
Yeah, we're joined by Peter King, former New York congressman. He's joining us live, as well as Rebecca Walser, tax attorney, joining us live, and Rich Valdez, host of This Is America podcast. All right, good to see everybody here. Let me just read this really quick, and then we'll get to your thoughts on this. The NSBA, the National School Board Association, as part of their letter said, quote, as these acts of malice, violence, and threats against public school officials have increased, the classification of these heinous actions could be the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism and hate crimes, end quote. Then the Attorney General in his memo said this in part, quote, the department takes these incidents seriously and is committed to using its authority and resources to discourage these threats, identify them when they occur, and prosecute them when appropriate, end quote. Let's start with Rich Valdez on this. What's happening?
Well, I spent the better part of a decade as a school board member and as a founder of a charter school. I've never seen anything so crazy as what we're seeing right now. Punishing parents for practicing their right to free speech, and moreover, their parental rights, the right to have influence and impact and to say so over their own children's education. This is absolutely crazy. And I think we talked about a similar topic about a month and a half ago when they had local sheriffs coming in, busting up meetings when they were complaining about critical race theory. That was a local issue and to some degree may be appropriate. When was the last time you said, hey, call the FBI, the parents are out of control? And they're not out of control. They're just doing what they're supposed to do within their rights under the Constitution. So I think this is not just an overreach. This is really, I don't know how else to say it, but this is really tyrannical action that we're seeing coming from Biden and Merrick Garland.
Yeah, we've heard some, quite frankly, Senator Josh Hawley was upset with this decision, and he expressed his dissatisfaction with this with the Deputy Attorney General. Here's that soundbite, and then we'll get our panelists' thoughts.
Tell me where the line is with parents expressing their concerns, waiting for hours in the school board meetings.
It's the job of the Justice Department and local law enforcement to address that.
You are attempting to intimidate them. You are attempting to silence them. You are attempting to interfere with their rights as parents and, yes, with their rights as voters. This is wrong.
Congressman King, what's going on here? What's left for parents to do when they aren't happy with what their students are being taught?
Well, I agree completely with Senator Hawley. This is an absolute disgrace. There is no legal basis for it at all. It's an attempt to intimidate grassroots mothers and fathers who want to speak up at school board meetings on issues such as critical race theory, other issues that they feel are being foisted on their kids without the approval of the parents. Listen, the FBI and the Justice Department have done nothing to investigate Antifa or Black Lives Matter, who have caused tremendous violence throughout our country. We saw it here in New York last summer. It was an absolute disgrace what was going on. The hundreds of millions of dollars in property damage. The cops ended up in the hospital. This, right now, I think it's a real grassroots movement of parents who are outraged by what's happening. And the Biden administration is responding by turning the FBI loose on them. This is the ultimate in thought control. It's the ultimate in intimidation. But from what I know of these grassroots mothers and fathers, they are not going to be intimidated. And it's really wrong what the president's doing and the Justice Department is doing. And I'm disappointed in Merrick Garland, who had a reputation as being much more moderate and much more focused. This is an absolute abuse of power.
Yeah, there's so many avenues, and I tried to think of where's this going to go? Would it silence parents, or mom and dad are going to come at them harder? And also, there's got to be somebody, Rebecca, at the FBI just rolling their eyes, saying we've got enough going on, rather investigating moms and dads at school board meetings.
Yeah, Sean, this is such a slippery slope that you were talking about earlier. And the law, the Supreme Court has been very careful to talk about speech that is prohibited. So I would say the Bill of Rights needs to be sent immediately to this administration and certainly to the Department of Justice and specifically to Merrick Garland, who was supposed to sit on the Supreme Court, but didn't happen. And so, this administration is very direct and deliberate in what they're trying to do here. They know what they're trying to do, and they are just exacerbating exacerbating their own problem. Because when you come to Americans and you say, you don't have the right to tell us what we should be doing with your children, I'm afraid you're going to awaken the sleeping giant of the mothers and the fathers that have been sitting back and didn't care about what was going on in social media, didn't care maybe what was going on January 6th, didn't really care about the election, weren't maybe so involved. But when you start messing with their kids, you start waking a sleeping and poking a sleeping bear. And let me tell you, if this administration thinks that this is going to go their way, they have another thing coming. We are a free country. We have the right to speak. We have the right to publicly address our officials. And that's what these parents will do. And they will be backed up by every constitutional attorney in America. And I will join them.
Yeah. Rich, we got about 20 seconds left. Again, this seems like the parents who were upset before, they're really going to make their voices heard while they still can.
Absolutely. And it seems more and more parents are jumping on board saying, you know what, this just doesn't smell right. And lamentably, as parents are getting involved, which is the dream of every public school teacher, now the government's saying, no more, no mas. You don't have a right to free speech when it comes to your kids.
Yeah, really interesting to watch this story play out. We'll keep an eye on the school board meetings, local school board meetings. Peter King, Rebecca Walser, and Rich Valdez, please stay with us. Another topic to get to.
Yeah, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan meeting with a top Chinese diplomat in Zurich. Will this be a repeat of what happened in Anchorage this past March? We'll ask our panelists after this. Biden's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan meeting with China's top diplomat Yang Jingxi in Zurich. The meeting, which comes at a time of heightened tensions between the two rivals, meant to reset communication channels and discuss relevant issues.
It's the first time the two are meeting in person since their rocky Alaska exchange back in March, which ended in a bitter stalemate and some fiery public rebukes between the world's two largest economies. Let's welcome back in our panelists for a reaction: Peter King, Rebecca Walser, Rich Valdez. That first meeting between the two envoys, which also included Secretary Blinken, was a bit embarrassing for the United States. If we recall that interaction going back and forth between the two. Peter King, what are your expectations for what's happening now? Could this be a repeat of what happened in Anchorage?
I'm afraid it may be. And actually, back in Anchorage, I was even willing to give Blinken the benefit of the doubt for the first time out. But the fact is, this administration's foreign policy makes no sense. It shows itself to be very weak, very uncertain of where it's going. And Jake Sullivan in particular, I have no faith in. So I'm very concerned about this. We are at a critical moment with China and Taiwan. In Taiwan, we are closely connected to. We have obligations, I believe, to Taiwan. Certainly, we should be supplying them with more military hardware. And we should be working with Japan and Australia and the Brits to say that we will safeguard Taiwan's security. So I hope that Jake Sullivan stands up to them. Unfortunately, I don't have great confidence.
Well, Taiwan, you mentioned that. A reporter asking President Biden yesterday about China's latest round of provocative military activity towards Taiwan. Here's that exchange.
Any comments towards China's provocation over Taiwan?
Well, I've spoken with Xi about Taiwan. We agree, we'll abide by the Taiwan agreement. That's where we are. And we made it clear that I don't think he should be doing anything other than abiding by the agreement.
All right. I don't think you should be doing anything other than abiding by the agreement, is what he laid out to President Xi Jinping, according to the president. But China flew nearly 150 military aircraft into Taiwan's air defense zone over the weekend and into Monday in what is an unprecedented number of incursions. The United States issuing a warning in response, calling the provocations, quote, destabilizing. The question here, Rebecca, is can Taiwan really trust the United States to have its back, especially in the moment that we're in after Afghanistan?
Wow, what a question, Sean. No, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if you look at what happened in Anchorage specifically, Blinken had come, remember, from South Korea and Japan, and had publicly stated that he was coming from those countries to Alaska to talk to the Chinese from a position of strength. And China responded, and this is a direct quote. So let me say here, this is a top Chinese diplomat in that conversation. Let me say here, in front of the Chinese side, the United States does not have the qualification to say that it wants to speak to China from a position of strength. And that's how they feel. This administration projects nothing globally except for weakness, and so China sees its window of opportunity, and they will take it.
And keeping in mind, too, this all follows the fall of Kabul to the Taliban. That conversation in Anchorage was way before that moment, Rich, when we all watched on the international stage what happened there in Afghanistan once the U.S. Left, our troop presence left. And China was watching too. What do you think their takeaways were in that moment?
I think their takeaway, just like mine is we look at this administration that says that parents are domestic terrorists, the Taliban are businesslike, and China is an adversary that's provoking. 150 planes is not a provocation, in my opinion. I think that's more advanced than a provocation. But withstanding all that nomenclature, China is clearly in a great position. And if you look at Joe Biden, if China had spies or people involved in espionage, nobody's doing a better job for China than Joe Biden and his administration. Jake Sullivan is a complete sellout. Trying to make a cleanup in aisle 6 for what's going on after he got embarrassed in Anchorage, it's not going to cut it. China's clearly saying, they're flexing on us. They're saying, hey, look, we're the big guy on the block. You're going to do what you're told to do. And you're going to set the stage for us so that we can do what we want to do in Afghanistan and we can do what we want to do wherever we want to do it. And Joe Biden just says, oh, I spoke to Xi and that's okay. And that's not going to cut it. China has to be met with the same type of force and strength that they're putting out. And that was something President Trump did, but sadly something President Biden continues to fail to do.
You know, Rebecca brought up a statement or quote that was from that meeting in Anchorage. And just paraphrasing another quote, if we may all remember, the Chinese diplomat brought up racial issues that we had in the United States of America at the time. I mean, they honed in at every weak point that they could find. So, Congressman, I'll ask this to you. The United States doesn't have a win when coming to this table. We don't have to look what we did here. We've bombed ISIS-K. Oh, no, we didn't. We killed 10 civilians and 7 children. We had a great evacuation from Afghanistan. Oh, no, actually, we didn't. There's not a lot we're coming to the world stage with at this point under our belt. How do you foresee this going down, Congressman?
That's why it's more important than ever that the U.S. attempt to reinsert itself here. He has to make it clear. We have to make it clear to China we are not going to tolerate any incursion into Taiwan, that they can't continue with these policies. And we have to, I think one way to prove that early on is to send much more military hardware and supplies, technology to Taiwan, and also make it clear that we're working with the Brits, with the Australians, with Japan, and getting Japan involved here, because that would have in many ways China outflanked. I have to know what's real. And you're right. Up till now, we have nothing on the winning side of the column to show that we are strong and they are willing to stand up for what we believe in. This has been an administration of vacillation and accommodation and appeasement.
And bring up coronavirus origins as well. Maybe that would be a good topic of conversation. A lot of people have questions and have been hurt by that. Okay, our panelists out of time for this hour, but we thank you very much. Peter King, Rebecca Walser, Rich Valdez. Thank you.
A new hour of National Report starts right now.